Because many of us have the privilege to see these young boys in our everyday lives looking like this, being cheeky. Most people walking around telling me, who's that kid, Riley? Because he just exudes so much cheekiness. How many people know Riley in their lives? Right? So effervescent, positive, excitable, sometimes angry, but that's all of us, right? We have the option to be everything else. But these young boys sadly don't have that option. So when we think about the first words that most people think about when we think about this demographic, it's not often pride, because people are plastered with the narrative of victims of gun or stabbings, perpetrators of the crime, aggressive, in your face, loud, all of these other things. But actually, these are also their narratives. Young, effervescent, cheeky, smiley, happy, all of these other things. But actually, they're never really given a plethora of expression in the society and within the institutions that they have to navigate. Which is why this project was so pertinent for me, to be able to look at what we hear on the streets and hear in the news about young boys and think, actually, that's not all I see. I work with these young people day in, day out. How can I platform a different narrative of young black boys that actually maybe start to challenge people in their tracks when they talk about young boys in a singular narrative? It's an 8-week process that allows me to work with these young boys, that allow them to start to shed this armor, this stoicism, which, again, we are all at fault for this armor they have to put on, because the society gives them this idea that when you step out, you're a man. They don't look at these young boys like they're 13. They look at them that they're already criminals, someone who has the ability to assault you. So they step out trying to be this Riley, while people are expecting them to be another version of themselves. And they think, well, why am I trying to not be that version? Because that's what you expect of me anyway. So actually, it's also our fault why these young boys have to walk around with this armor and this stoicism and this lack of expressiveness. And for me, the whole 8 weeks is about trying to reinstill this version that they are so scared to show everyone else. And actually, in most cases, when I show them back the portraits, they're like, bruv, man, can I take that home though? And that to me shows the value that has happened in that whole 8-week process, that allows them to actually see themselves and feel pride that actually this is me. And I do want to frame that in my house. One of them asked me, can I take the A0 portrait? I said, how big is your room? I can't fit an A0 portrait in my room. But the point is, there is some pride attached to him and that image, that he doesn't even care if it doesn't fit through his front door. You know, he wants to be associated with that image. And that to me is the beauty in the process. And obviously what you guys are seeing today is the end product. But what's important to remember, this is a process. This project is not just get boys together and photograph them, because that would never happen. It's about the work that has to happen to empower these young boys, one, to learn the tools they can use to express themselves in healthier ways. When we step upstairs, you will see some of the various things that I created within the workshop to allow these young boys to do that. Because in the beginning, these young boys don't talk about how they feel, they just act it out, because that's the only language they have been afforded in the society. So actually, the whole part of this project is giving them emotionally literate languages to say how you feel and actually not be scared of that feeling. Yes, you want to bang Mackay. Why? You know, what did Mackay do to you that made you want to bang him? Let's talk about that feeling. He made you feel disappointed or made you feel embarrassed. Why is that feeling of embarrassment something that makes you want to bang him? And then we explore that in greater detail. So the whole point of this project is trying to, again, challenge the way people see young black boys, to humanize them in a way that actually allows them to be able to be safe within their existence. And then, when everyone's shouting about knife crime and all this other violence, what we tend not to see is all of this. And that's why it's important to remind ourselves, yes, we know this happens in the community, we are not blind to that. But what's important is to not singularize that narrative and therefore actually create a self-fulfilling prophecy. And actually the whole idea of this project is allowing these young boys which is why specifically I work with 13 years old, to give them the tools to be able to make decisions, to understand consequences, to be able to navigate the feelings that maybe might then send them down a pathway that might involve them in carrying a knife. Because when you understand the context in which a child lives, that makes it unsafe for that child to walk from here to there, then you understand why that child will pick up a knife. And actually it's our job as a society to then think of what can we put in place to support that child holistically. Not just look at that child as, oh, he's this deranged person that just wants to hurt people. So what is so important about this project is understanding that it's predicated on research which I conducted traveling around top five happiest countries in the world, which allowed me to then dissipate that research and learning through creative processes that allow young people to take away this learning without knowing that they're doing a thesis. And that's the job of us as artists, to try and distill information that's inaccessible to particular people, but give them the nuggets that they need to be able to thrive in a society that perhaps does not provide those tools for them. Because one of our challenges, as you can see, in the past year I've worked with about 80 young black boys, but there's so many more schools in this city, right? And there's so many more schools that have money to pay for various things, but not for artistic intervention for young black boys. Because guess what? They're not the most valued in the institution. Because most of these young boys are consistently in isolation units. They're consistently excluded out of school and put into pupil referral units. Those things cost money. But the schools are much more willing to do that than pay for the young people who are consistently seen as the disadvantaged and the hard to manage young people. Why would I put this amount of money towards actually making them thrive better when they're the ones that should be punished? And it's about challenging the institutions to think differently about actually how they value a group of young people. There's a couple of schools that I did this project to for free, out of my own. The project is not just free because I turn up and give my time. I take them on trips to Nando's. I pay for all of their food. So it's not just a free project like just turning up and giving my service, which is valuable, but actually it costs me money to run the project. And I've done it in 2 schools where they've not had the money to pay me, but the schools sit in between 4 or 5 council estates where kids are scared to walk home. Like, I know that I'm not going to sleep well knowing that I'm not going to do that project just because the school cannot afford to pay me. But realistically, it's not sustainable for me to do that. Joanna knows, that's my schools coordinator. We have meetings where we're walking out of there thinking, I want to bang that person. But I'm an adult. I have different ways to express that, right? And that's where we're really trying to bring the kind of people together that are not just going to do the political lip service, which has happened in numerous meetings that we've had, but actually how we can unlock the doors to get access into more schools, to challenge institutions, to put more money into the way that those young people are those young people are allowed to feel like they belong in those spaces, how their narratives and their stories are told in much more diverse ways, and how those young people can actually be supported in ways that allow them to thrive.